Hello everyone, and welcome to my first Mist of Pandaria gold making guide. In this guide, I will be covering many gather professions, but also other useful things you can do to make gold in the beginning. The first profession I'll cover is mining. I'll talk about some tips and tricks, and of course also share my farming routes. What I've noticed is that you could be flying around and gathering the different veins, but there's also quite a few deposits inside caves. So you could stick to a cave and just farm other things at the same time, for example creatures for cloth, mode of harmony, and even combine this with another gather profession, Herbalism, as herbs and veins can spawn in the same caves. There will of course be competition for these kind of things, but then again, this will also cause the price to be very expensive, and this is why I plan to farm a lot of gold for the first couple of weeks, as I expect to make between 5 to 10,000 gold an hour. When I'm farming, I'm also paying attention to how much competition there is. If there isn't too much competition, I also tend to skip deposits in water environments because it will slow me down, unless the deposit is of course close to the shore or close to where I can get back on my flying mount and continue farming, but else I feel like this is slowing me down a bit too much. Alright, moving on to my farming maps. The first one here in the Jade Forest, and I'm usually just farming at the northern part of the zone. I usually farm in the Jade Forest when I'm also leveling up this profession. Next, I would then move to Valley of the Four Winds, and here I'm staying in the middle of the zone. If I had Herbalism at the same time, I would definitely be farming in the water environment close to Stormstout. When I'm farming in Town Long Steps, I prefer to also have a flying mount, as I feel like there's way too many creatures you need to get past if you're on your ground mount. Dread Wastes are also amazing when you have your flying mount, especially in the middle of the zone where there's going to be plenty of deposits. Moving on to Herbalism. Herbs will not just be in high demand because people need these for alchemy, but also because scribers or people leveling inscription will need these. Eventually scribers will also need these to craft the new Dark Moon decks. These epic decks will turn into an insane epic trinket that will be in a high demand and also extremely expensive for the first couple of months. For those of you interested in my farming route, this is the one I use in the Jade Forest, and it's also amazing if you're just going to speed level up to 550. Then you could always swap to Valley of the Four Winds, and if you have mining at the same time, this route is absolutely amazing as well. Therefore, there could also be a lot of competition, which is why you could any day swap to Conlai Summit instead. This is definitely also a good farming route. Else, you could swap to Dread Waste and follow this route instead. If you have mining, I would probably go to this zone, as you can benefit a lot when you combine both of these professions at the same time. Remember to always kill rare creatures. Even though they might be difficult and pretty time consuming, then you will also get small bags of goods, and in here there will be many different profession materials. Yeah, a lot, therefore it is also worth the time spent. I like to go to this location in the Jade Forest when I'm going to level up my skinning. Yeah, there's going to be many of these creatures stacked together, not just at this area, but also nearby. Yeah, I am of course doing this on a level 90, but it is rather easy to slay these, even when you're leveling up. What I like a lot about this profession is that there's going to be many different beasts you will be slaying on your way to max level, and you don't really have to pay attention to nearby deposits or herbs. No, you're just slaying the different beasts, you're skinning these, and you're making a lot of additional gold. In original Mist of Pandaria, I remember the next spot being very popular and often mentioned, but it is definitely also one of the goldest spots, because there's a lot of these creatures at level 90 and they're stacked together. If you have Herbalism or mining, you can also make a lot of additional gold if you go here. So yeah, what we're doing is basically just to do these big pulls, and there's going to be many of these spawning all the time. There will also be a lot of competition because it's mentioned in many different gold guides from back then. However, to make this even more efficient, you should also be using the Potion of Luck. Every time you're slaying something, you also have a chance to get a treasure, and in there can be things granting you additional gold. By the way, a small tip, don't be too close to the edge, as these creatures has a knockback, so you could end up dying due to fall damage. In this zone, there's yet another amazing spot, and this doesn't require you to have flying mount or be level 90. No, you can go here as you're leveling up, but there might also be a lot of competition, not just for skinning these, but also because it is a questing area. However, when people don't have skinning and they're killing these, you can get a lot of gold simply just by letting them do the work, and then you go skin everything. What makes this farm even better is that these creatures doesn't have a high amount of health. Therefore, it is fairly easy to slay them even without proper gear and not being level 90. The only downside is that this is also mainly one of the best skinning farming locations in Mist of Pandaria, so there can be a ton of competition, which is why I also like another location. It is in the same zone, but more to the west. And I never really see any other people farm here, which is why I mainly like to go if there's too much competition at the other two spots in this zone. When I've slayed all of these creatures at this pool, I'm then moving up to this location where there's going to be more spawns I can take care of as I'm waiting for the other creatures to respawn. And this area is of course also a spawn location for this rare creature, so make sure to kill it if it's up. Moving on to crafting professions, starting with leatherworking. PvP items will now be a lot better in PvE. Why? Well, because they now have 3 stats instead of 2. In Cataclysm, PvP items for example had a PvP stat and then another important stat, but now it for example has crit and mastery and then PvP power, which is why these can now make you a ton of gold in the beginning, together with the bind on equip epic items. This is of course also the same case with the profession tailoring, where you can make the contenders PvP items or the new epic bind on equip items you can also sell on the auction house. With blacksmithing, you should definitely also be crafting the contenders PvP plate items, as these will be useful for warriors, death knights and paladins. While you were leveling up, you probably also got yourself quite a few Spirit of Harmony. Even though these are bind on pickup, you can turn them into these bind on equip weapons. The item level is 463, in other words, they will be selling super quickly. As an alchemist, you can use your Spirit of Harmony and turn it into living steel bars. These are pretty expensive in the beginning, as they're needed for blacksmithers to craft different epic items. Now that I'm already talking about Spirit of Harmony, in Shrine of the 2 Moons and Shrine of the 7 Stars, you can find a Spirit of Harmony vendor, where you can exchange these into many different crafting materials. Those of you who doesn't have a crafting profession, head to the auction house and check what material is the most expensive and exchange your Spirit of Harmony into this to make the maximum amount of gold. Some of you might also be lucky enough to get yourself an epic bind on equip item. Don't sell this right away. In Cataclysm Classic, during the first couple of weeks, epic items got more expensive as we got closer to the first raid release, and maybe it might be like this in Mist of Pandaria Classic as well, so be aware of how cheap you sell your epics. The next one is for those of you without a profession. Yeah, you could also just be farming raw gold by farming dungeons and vendoring everything you find. If you get yourself a nice transmog, you could also sell this on the auction house, but I still like to farm Karasan. It's making me around 2500 raw gold an hour, where I'm just selling everything without using the auction house. As of right now, I'm currently also working on another video where I'll try to see if I can make up to around 5000 gold an hour without any professions. So if you would like to get notified when I post this, then I would also highly recommend you to subscribe to my channel. There's a reason I've kept this last clip for the end of the video. Yeah, because I would like to reward the people watching this video to the end. This cave right here has been absolutely insane when I tested it for a long time on the beta. I know there were of course no competition, but then again, the amount of spawns in here is just insane. So if you have herbalism and mining, I would try this spot. Hopefully there isn't too many people here, because people usually don't watch a video to the end. But I remember in original Mist of Pandaria, I made up to 15,000 gold an hour just by staying in this cave and also farming a bit right outside the cave. The amazing thing is that you don't even need to have mining and herbalism at the same time. If you have skinning, you can also be skinning these creatures. So as long as you have 2 gather professions, I would probably check this out. But yeah, this is also what I had for you today. Thank you for watching to the end, and if you would like to see more useful Mist of Pandaria guides, make sure to check out my channel. Soon I will also be publishing a lot more. Peace.